Welcome back. This is Painting with Pigments Part 2. What we are going to do is go over how to apply the ochre, the flat ochre type pigments. On this particular case, this is the Games Workshop Griffin, the Imperial Griffin. I'm going to make his body color a kind of a yellowish lion color, although a little bit lighter. What I want to do is start with the lightest color possible, but I don't want to waste time putting on a lot of layers if I don't have to. And because we are dealing with miniatures, you want to keep your layers to a minimum. Otherwise, it just starts looking thick and nasty, and you don't want to really do that. So what we have here, I've already prepped my miniature. Don't worry about the rest of the body. I spot prep my miniatures quite often. We are going to apply using a white primer base, and our first color is going to be this yellow 920, which is an oxide pigment. The density of the color allows me to kind of take a little jump ahead, whereas if I was just working with the straight ochres, I would probably have to start with a lighter color. But as you can see, all we do is dip our nylon paintbrush and tap off the excess, and we just start applying the color. We're basically pressing the brush onto the model so that we stain the miniature with the color we want. And we go through and apply as evenly as possible. The areas that we want to stay light, that will have like a light color white highlight, we will avoid. You want to, on horses, it's called a pannier, and it's a light, it's usually on the flanks here, like this piece of skin right here, or it can be on the high point of the hips and legs. So we avoid those areas, and we work to get a nice even color all over the miniature. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how I apply this and continue to work. One of the things I usually do is I have a piece of white paper or a paper plate underneath my model to catch the excess pigment dust that falls, and that way when I'm done with this particular color, I just dump it back in the jar and off we go. No muss, no fuss, no bother, and it helps save on pigment. But because the white kind of reacted with my camera angles and caused a little bit of glare, I'm not doing that at this time for the video. But that'll save you a little pigment dust here and there and help on the matter of cleanup. Okay, and as you can see, this went on very quickly. No problems. We have a good, solid, even coverage, and we just have white where we wanted the white. There you go. Now I get to go seal it. And because I'm working with your basic dull coat sealer, I assume everyone is familiar with that and the application. You want a light but even coat. So I'm not going to video that because I have to take it outside. But there's tons of video on how to apply sealers and so forth if you need to look those up. But off to go seal it. Okay, one thing I neglected to mention is before you seal, one thing you want to be sure to do is to blow off any excess pigment dust. You can use canned air, and you can use, of course, your pucker power, but I'll guarantee you sooner or later you're going to spit on it. If you do spit on it, just let it set until it dries and then go on from there. That's why I like using the canned air, because that way you don't get any excess on it. Okay, after a light layer of sealer, depending on your situation and environmental conditions, it should take about 15 to 20 minutes to dry, no more than that. If it takes longer than that, then you probably got it on too thick. With Tuster's Dull Coat, if you see a shine developing, that means you got it on too thick. And again, with the miniatures, you want to keep that to a minimum, so go light, a nice even coat, and let it dry 15-20 minutes, and you can put another layer on. Now, with this one, you can see he went pretty yellow. So what I'm going to do is get this Colonial Raw Sienna color, and we're going to go over him with that to kind of make him more of a tan color, you know, a little bit more natural looking. And you can see how I'm applying here. Gives a nice burnished color. And you can see this is not an oxide. This is a ochre pigment. So you can see that the application of color is not as strong as the oxide pigment was. So it might take us a couple of layers, or I might even go to a different color with this. We shall see after we seal. One thing you can always count on is when you seal, the pigments will go darker. So imagine a slight increase of intensity and color. So if you're not positive which direction you want to take it, seal it, let the pigments go darker, and see which direction you want to go from there. Alright. We're going to blow off the pigment dust and take it from there. One thing, I'm going to hold this away from the camera because this stuff has a tendency to go a little nuts, and I don't want to get all this pigment dust all over the place. Anyways, okay, we blow it off and now seal it. Okay, as you can see, we are getting a really strong yellow here, and I'd like to tone that down a little bit. One of my favorite colors here is titanium white. It is an oxide pigment, and if you only get a couple of colors from earth pigments, I strongly recommend the titanium white and the black 318. Both are oxides, both have intense coverage, and they will help you correct errors and back up. If you're going the wrong color, it will help back it up. Now, one thing to be aware of with this color is it has a very strong blue undertone. We're going to discuss undertones later in the video. But this blue undertone, if you're not careful and you put it with something with a reddish undertone, you can actually start creating something that looks more like a bruise than the color you intended. But in this case, remember your color theory classes, what is the opposite of yellow? We got blue. So we want to tone down the blue, so we're going to, tone down the yellow, so we're going to introduce some blue to it. So this helps us out. The oxide titanium white is strong enough that it will help tone this down. If it was not as intense as it is, then I would have a lot of trouble with putting a lighter color on top of this yellow here, because it would just fade away. You wouldn't be able to see it. But because this pigment is so strong, it can just, kind of walk up and slap it in the face and tell it to behave. So we are just going to put a little bit on here, and all we want to do is tone it down. Now most of this is going to fade. It's a good strong pigment, but it does have its limits. So most of this will fade. You can put more than one coat on if you need it. Typically I only need 1 or 2 coats to bring the color back where I want it. And we're just going to apply this. As you can see, our guy is still kind of damp, so he's a little bit shiny here, but that pretty much lightened him up really well. I may put on another layer. I'm not sure. I'm going to let him dry completely, and we'll go from there. Alright, you're dry now. What I'm going to do here is just go with the white, and I'm just going to hit those spots that I wanted to keep sort of highlighted and lighter in color than the general body. You can do this anytime. It works really well if you accidentally get a little carried away like I did, to bring back your lighter colors. And if I get a little carried away, I'm not worried about it, because I can always go back and darken it up if I need to. Alright, times 2. Now, I pretty much like the way he's turned out so far. He lightened up considerably, and I've got some highlights on there. Now it's time to put the darker colors into the recessed areas to give them a little bit more depth. I'm using the Environux Terracotta, which is also another oxide pigment. You're going to see me using these a lot. I really like them because of the intensity of the coverage you can get with them. And I just get into those little crevices. And this will look a lot smoother once I blow it off and apply some dull coat to it. Looks kind of streaky right now. That's part of the nature of the beast. Here. A little too much there. Woo-hoo. Oh well. That's the way it goes. As you can see, more is not always better. It just falls off and hits the mat. When the model stops taking color, when the color stops getting darker, it means you have completely saturated the area with pigment. There's not gonna, no more it will stick to the model. That's when you have to stop, blow off the excess, and seal it with sealer so you can get a new foundation to start another layer. Alrighty, yeah, time to seal. Now, our next layer, and hopefully the last one, will be the Environix Dark Brown Oxide Pigment. So hopefully this will go ahead and define the recess. Now, like painting, you want to make the areas where you put in your dark shadow a little bit smaller than you did previously. You know, as you progress with darker shadows, you make the area smaller and smaller. Same with highlighting. So you do want to do something similar with this. The fact that you're not covering up previous work completely, that just helps add to the transition and make it a little bit more gradual, a little bit more natural looking. But as you can see, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And there we go. That's all it takes. I'm going to blow it off and seal it, and then I'll show you the end result. Alright, last but not least, if this is too stark for you, and a lot of miniature painters want the more vibrant contrast, but if that is too stark for you, feel free to go back over it with one of your original colors to soften it up a little bit. And this will take care of it. Alright, there we go. You can see here that we have pigments applied. And got some detail going on him, and ready to go on down the road. So we'll discuss more about the various types of pigments in a little bit.